Is Jordan Addison being underutilized? And the rest of your questions. It's a mailbag episode, Twitter Tuesday on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. Appreciate you all so very much. My hashtag everydayers making this thing go around. So thank you so much for coming and hanging out. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Today on the show, it is Twitter Tuesday. That means I'm answering your questions as provided to me by email at lockedonvikingspodcast@gmail.com in the Google form that's linked in the show notes of any episode of Locked On Vikings, or just via Twitter when I put out the call, which I usually do at sometime on Mondays. First one I'm going to answer today comes from Jacob Conoy, who asks, what's the pie chart percentage of blame between Addison, KOC, and Darnold as to why Addison is only getting 4.5 targets per game? I think that there is a large misconception about that's second on the team. Third, I guess, if you count Aaron Jones, but I feel like running backs are kind of in their own category when it comes to target share. That's second. It's the pie chart of blame goes basically entirely to Justin Jefferson demanding 61 targets so far. Not demanding like verbally, like walking into O'Connell's office. He's Justin Jefferson. So of course he's got 3 times as many targets as anybody else on the team. That's probably what you want. I'm going to guess that this conversation comes up because of that like Instagram post that everybody misunderstood about Addison. He posts a picture of himself and it says free 3. Free 3 is a slogan that he's used since college. I didn't even address it when it came out because this is just clearly him just kind of saying his thing. And then later he posted a picture of like himself with Jefferson and tagged Jefferson, just sort of regular player Instagramming. Totally innocuous, but of course, free 3 is like a suspicious thing to hear if you don't know the context. So I forgive you if you freak out, unless you masquerade as a reporter and you wanted to freak people out because that makes you money, even though you're being entirely dishonest about it. Then I don't forgive you. But a bunch of you asked about that, and I wanted to also just get that out there for anybody who's like, whoa, is he trying to say I'm not getting enough targets? No, he's not at all. And in fact, reporters even asked him in the locker room on Monday after a brief practice. They were like, what was that about? And he's like, yeah, that's been my thing forever. There's no issue though. We're chilling. That's my thing. So everybody stand down. It's fine. Chill. Okay. You all are way too primed to take anything that can possibly be construed for like wide receiver dissatisfaction. That's worseism. Okay. It's worseism. That's all it is. It's worseism. You're stereotyping wide receivers. Stop doing that. Let's move on to the next question, which is from Shadow Flame, who asks, how is the addition of Hawkinson going to help the run game when we face lighter boxes because he is such a weapon? I'm going to guess. So I think it changes a little bit about what you call in the run game. If you want to, I think that it is better suited to run Hawkinson through more strong side outside zone. Not necessarily to run as much duo. Duo's been their best run play. So you might still want to just toss Josh Oliver out there and run duo. The thing, like, I've talked a lot about duo this year. The double teams on the interior have been phenomenal. But one of the things I probably haven't given enough attention to is Josh Oliver essentially playing the role that is the weak point of duo. There is a mismatch by nature in duo that is a tight end having to go one-on-one against an edge rusher and holding up in that spot admirably in a lot of these plays. And sometimes that's even Munt. Hawkinson can do that fine. I think that has been like Josh Oliver's crowning achievement so far this year. And it's quite what a feat it is. But if you're going to go to a more strong side outside zone deal where you use that mobility Hawkinson has a little bit, I think it also plays into some really cheeky rollout stuff that you can do, and some like this whole interesting page of the playbook that you absolutely want to incorporate. That probably changes some stuff. I think he also contributes to some of your too high beaters. Yeah. So if they want to give you, light boxes, which the Vikings get a lot of light boxes because everybody's afraid of Justin Jefferson. You don't need Hawkinson for that. But so if they want to give you light boxes, he does contribute to your ability to punish that as well. There's like all these other things that it opens up that the Vikings haven't really been able to rely on as much so far. It changes the playbook that you have access to a lot in a really good way. By the way, if you missed it, he is back on the active roster. He's expected to play versus the Colts. He probably won't be on the injury report. Squeaks asks, how many of the issues does a new corner or defensive tackle paper over? Corner, probably a decent amount. So one of the issues of the Vikings, like in the coverage problems that they are facing, one of the big issues is that their coverages are too samey. That after you've gone through all the disguises and you've forced things to declare, the first few steps of the rep, you're basically in some kind of middle of field open or zero, probably quarters or Tampa 2. And that's just like not enough variety. Like there are too many concepts that beat all of that. Dagger's one of them. It's not the only one of them. But there's too many daggers. There's too many things that beat all of those. And as long as a quarterback is confident that you're getting some level of middle field open because the Vikings lead the league in that, at least last I checked, then the concept's going to work out how you think it's going to work out, no matter what the Vikings like rotate to out of their bizarre pre-snap look. So it's an issue, right? And to incorporate other coverages, you need to ask more of players you haven't asked that much of so far. And I think that actually got them a little bit versus the Rams, asking more of Stephon Gilmore and Shaq Griffin than maybe they could actually do. So you add a cornerback and maybe you open those things up. It could be this really big thing. D tackle, obviously interior pressure would be great. I don't yet know what happened in the Rams game pressure-wise. I haven't gotten to that. I'll get there. I promise. I'm doing a longer thing on the defense, so bear with me on that. Somebody asked, there were a lot of what went wrong versus the Rams questions that I'm not going to really take today because I'm just not ready to answer those yet. But stay tuned. I'm working on it. But interior pressure would be great, but on the whole, the Vikings have not had trouble getting to quarterbacks. They had trouble on Thursday night against the Rams. Don't know what happened there, but on the whole, I don't think that that's the thing that fixes everything that's wrong with the defense. You know what I mean? I think a corner would go a lot longer to that. Wouldn't fix everything, but I think it would help. I love Christian Darasaw asks, how do you reconcile the Turner pick? Even if in your defense of him, I haven't seen anything other than just kind of okay. Shouldn't the expectations be higher for someone we spent so much on? No. I really don't think they should right away. They're still rookies, man. You have to also remember the context of that. The Vikings spent quarterback capital on Dallas Turner at the end of the day. They were trying to posture for a quarterback, and then that sort of flipped into Dallas Turner. But I think it's pretty bad faith to be they spent a second, a third, and a fourth on him and all that. No, they didn't do that on knowing it was Dallas Turner. They did that thinking it was a quarterback, which you could still argue is a misstep, but it's a different misstep. So you should probably be specific about that. But in terms of his performance thus far, maybe I need to be more direct. I have no issue with how Dallas Turner has played so far. He has done mostly a dirty work job. He's done that job well enough, often against elite competition. And right now, Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel are the focal points of the edge room, which is absolutely earned by them. I don't think anybody's hey, let's get less Grenard out there. Let's get less Van Ginkel out there. If you want to make that argument so that we can get rookie snaps or whatever and be better on the chart, you're going to see Bleacher Report post or whatever, go ahead, but it's a pretty bad argument. But I have no issue with the way that Dallas Turner has played so far. It has been fine. Not mediocre, not average. It's been fine. No issue. We're good to go. And when the call, and I do think that when he is called upon to do more, I think he'll be able to answer that call based on what I've seen so far. More questions coming up here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you want to get in on FanDuel while the getting is good, you can get the Vikings, although you might want to wait The Vikings were 6.5 just yesterday, minus 6.5 favorites, 6.5 point favorites. So now 5.5. So people are slamming that Colts line and the line is shrinking. So maybe wait a little bit, but if you want to get in on that or whatever else is going on at FanDuel, player props, over-unders, parlays, whatever you want to do, you can go to FanDuel.com and right now you can get $200 in bonus bets with any $5 bet, whatever your first one is. So go to FanDuel, sign up, make an account, and bet $5 on whatever it is. You could also take, for example, the Vikings plus 360 to win the division. If you feel like they're going to be able to go do that, you can go take it. Whatever it is, you can find that at FanDuel.com. Make every moment more. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. Hey, if you aren't satisfied with my answer about Dallas Turner, if it was too vague for you, you want some more specifics, go to patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL. I've got a whole video. It's like 35 minutes of just like looking at Dallas Turner actually playing instead of just sitting there and raving about a snap count. He has played. We can evaluate it. So let's do that. So go check that out. It's free to watch. Let's move on with this episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast. The next question in this mailbag comes from Everydayer, who asks, you said on the postcast Sunday that Dagger killed us and that we can't be okay with going what we got, we got close and running it back on Thursday night. After the loss to the Rams, do you think that is what Flores did, or were there other factors at play? So I definitely don't think that that's what Flores did. I also don't think that the Rams went, let's spam Dagger, even though I think that would have been a totally reasonable game plan for them, considering the tape they were looking at going in. They had a totally different plan that I think attacked in a different way that obviously worked. It involved a lot of trying to isolate Stephon Gilmore and Shaq Griffin, and that really worked. They really found the matchups and isolated those. Different way to kind of get to the same result. But one of the things the Vikings didn't do a lot of against Detroit that I thought was interesting was they didn't do so much Tampa 2. They did a lot more Tampa 2 against Green Bay, and Green Bay ran more Dagger. And in a lot of cases, it didn't work for them. The Kamu Grugier-Hill pick against Green Bay was on Dagger versus Tampa 2, and Grugier-Hill made a good play. The Vikings didn't call it as much, so that might have been a different game plan thing. The one time I noticed Dagger, at least live, for the Vikings, they were in Tampa 2. Dagger was taken away. It turned into a check down that ended up converting a first down anyways because somebody else underneath messed up, but that's neither here nor there in terms of the Dagger thing. So no, the game kind of played out totally differently, and I think the problems will be different for that one. Darnold's Joint says, you said a couple weeks ago that teams have started copying the Flores defense, specifically what elements are being taken by other teams. I only vaguely remember saying that, but I think I was talking about Green Bay, because what I saw from Green Bay, and I've only watched the Vikings game like really closely, so what I saw from Green Bay in the Vikings game was a lot of pressures that just like looked really familiar. So I think people are just like taking some Flores pressures, which, hey, copycat league, everybody does it to everybody, right? Flattery is, or the imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. So that's kind of what I've noticed. I've noticed in watching other defenses too, that like there are some really Flores-y pressures and stunts and stuff from people who aren't off that tree. So I think that there's a little copycatting going on, but I don't think they're doing any of the stuff he's doing in coverage. I think that is still very like in beta. It's very prototypical and not like the kind of thing that people are quite ready. It's not quite ready for people to start copycatting it, but the pressures for sure. And everybody steals pressures from everybody. Jack asks, would you want to see Blake Brandel slide over and to tackle and insert Reisner at guard, or would you rather just keep Quessenberry there? My instinct says the first one, says to do that little shuffle. I don't love the idea of cross-training Brandel to be a guard for, I think, 2 years running, right? Or at least for this whole season, and then being like, actually, psych, you're a tackle again. But I did think he did a fine job as a backup tackle before, so you might have some growing pains as he kind of gets used to that again. But like, honestly, from Brandel, some of the L's that he's taken have been like, oh, this is a tackle playing guard kind of stuff where he's not quite as used to the phone booth and to the angles and the depths you have to be at and stuff. I really should do a Brandel video on Patreon soon, but I don't know. There's always been a bigger topic, but that I feel like would be okay. And then you'd have Reisner in at left guard, or even him at right guard, move Ingram over if you want to, if you would rather move, because both those guys have been playing right guard all year. So whichever one you feel will be better over on the left, probably Reisner. He's the one with actual experience there. That feels better than Quessenberry for me, but I'm not like super confident in that. And if the Vikings decide to go with Quessenberry, I'm not going to argue it very hard. Skull Buffs asks, oh, you're going to get me going. Is Anthony Richardson actually bad or being used poorly? Vikes may have dodged a bullet. What's going on in Indy? Okay, so in short, Richardson is falling apart. His mechanics are disastrous, and there are also a ton of issues elsewhere on that offense. The receivers suck, the line sucks, and the scheme sucks. Everything sucks in Indianapolis's offense. Holy crap, it's a mess, just judging by the last couple of games. I believe that if Anthony Richardson did end up here in Minnesota, which I've said for a long time here, was closer than you think. I think most of that information is public now. It has been reported by people more reputable than me, so you don't have to take my word for it anymore. But they got close, but I think that the culture, the organization, and its general state of like being in chaos a lot because of Jim Irsay is just like bad. I think Kevin O'Connell would have done a better job. I don't know. I just like Kevin O'Connell's ability to coach up quarterbacks. I think that's been pretty proven. But to get more specific about Anthony Richardson, you're going to get me going. Okay, so I have literally, as I'm uploading this, or as I'm recording this, I'm uploading a 75-minute Patreon video about Anthony Richardson, and I'm probably going to write an article at Wide Left later this week too. So this is my thing this week. Timing is broken. The timing is completely broken. Anthony Richardson is either dropping back too quickly, he needs to slow down his dropbacks, or the receivers need to get fast. And some of those, Josh Downs, I think, is quick, but like some of those receivers just are not running their routes fast. And so Richardson will very often be top of his drop, ready to throw on time, and nobody's broken off their route yet. And it's like, I can't tell if those guys are running slow or if Richardson's going too fast, but something's busted up there. Anytime he sees a flash of color in his eyes, whether it's actual pressure or it's just a flash of color that's going to get washed by him easily, he immediately abandons all mechanics and goes into scramble mode and drops his eyes. It's just a horrible habit. Not to mention some other, just horrible interceptions and, vision problems, and then just like missing, and there's inaccuracy issues, and just all of this just horrible stuff compounding. And there's a lot of disjointed parts of the scheme where like the timing isn't quite right. Like if this is how fast your quarterback drops and this is how fast your wide receivers run routes, why are they running routes at a depth that's 2 yards faster than they can get to before the QB is done with the drop? That's a schematic issue. Make the routes 8 yards instead of 10, and this gets fixed. It's a really easy fix. Why haven't we done it yet? And by the way, the protections are breaking down. It's catastrophically bad in Indianapolis. And no, it is not all Anthony Richardson's fault. A lot of people are really running interference for Anthony Richardson, like defending draft takes or whatever. I was really high on him coming out. And part of that Patreon video is me kind of reflecting on where I went wrong and what I was too confident in that like didn't work out. So please go watch that. It should be done processing by the time you listen to this. But it's bad, man. It's really bad there. It's real bad out there. And I feel bad for him because I don't think that Indianapolis has properly developed him. And I don't know if there is a way that they can go for now. So I'm going to probably go through this week saying that like, if I'm reading this situation right, that I don't know if they can justify putting Anthony Richardson on the field for next week. Like, I think it might have to be Flacco just on merit, just purely on who's the better quarterback. Even after you go, well, yeah, but he needs reps and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, but that offense isn't functional. And I don't know if those reps are teaching him anything. They're just going to solidify bad habits. I think you need to put him in Rice for 2 years and hope that that helps. But you're probably not going to stick around to see the fruits of that anyways. So I think all of those guys are kind of just screwed and are probably coaching for their jobs now. It's rough. Listen, I could go on for an hour and a half. I literally did for a Patreon video. So go check that out. I've got a lot more questions that I want to get to, though. So we will keep rolling in a second. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Hillsdale is a Christian college in Michigan. That's where their brick and mortar campus is, but they also have an online offering right now. You can get more than 40 free courses from there if you go sign up. A lot of it is like maybe what you would experience in like a high school social studies class, like those kinds of topics, like literary stuff. Like there's one about the Christmas Carol and one about Hamlet and other Shakespeare stuff, as well as some history things. There's a lot of Bible stuff. It's a Christian college. So there's a lot of stuff about like biblical history and religious history with Christianity and all that stuff, as well as some other topics that you might expect from a Christian college in Michigan offering online courses. So if you want to check that stuff out, if that's the kind of thing that is perhaps interesting to you, you can go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. It's been my favorite way to have a little extra fun during a Monday Night Football game I don't care about or whatever. And I've been having a lot of success with PrizePicks. All I do is simply let my rabbit pick what's going to happen. She picks 2 to 6 of her favorite players and puts them in a lineup and whether they'll do better or worse than their PrizePicks projection. And then I win money because my rabbit's really good at this. If you think you're better than a literal rabbit, a woodland creature at PrizePicks, go to prizepicks.com or download the PrizePicks app and you can sign up. Once you're there, use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL at the PrizePicks app or on prizepicks.com to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Moving on to this Twitter Tuesday episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast. The next one comes from Tyler Spence, who asks, how possible or realistic is it for teams to make in-game adjustments and how big can they be? Oh boy, it's a difficult topic because I think you can kind of only know if you're in the room. I think that they can make more wide-ranging adjustments the deeper in the year that you get. Kirk Cousins actually talked about this in a clinic a few years ago, like an off-season clinic, where he talked about how they would have like a game plan from week 3, and then they would have their game plan in week 9, and it wouldn't be working. Let's say, the other team came with a game plan that like countered their thing, and they got to adjust, and they go, oh yeah, we have all these week 3 concepts that would actually work great against this. Remember those? Let's run that. And we installed that, 6 weeks ago. It's still fresh enough in everyone's mind. They know how to run it. So you'd run that and that would kind of be your adjustments. You can flip to a totally different game plan if everybody remembers that, right? And it depends on, how well how complicated it is and how many moving pieces there are and how much rotation you do. Obviously all eats into that. My understanding is that it's basically the first 2 drives and then you adjust. Like the Rams game was perfect, right? Total, easy down the field and score, both ways, 2 drives, and then the defense is kind of clamped up and it didn't kind of feel like they did at the same time. Those first 2 drives are usually a little bit more of a feeling out process for both the offense and the defense. And so the results of those drives, I would bet anything that if you did like a which drives are the most predictive, the first 2 would probably be less predictive than the rest in terms of like their result, because the teams are still kind of feeling each other out. It's like 2 boxers in the first round, just sort of getting a vibe for each other. And then you adjust, you can make, protection adjustments. You can start calling different things. You can make bigger wholesale changes, like changing the personnel that you want to be using. Hey, let's use our tight ends more a little bit. They're coming out in this kind of personnel more. All kinds of things. I think you can make a lot of in-game adjustments, but the key is players need to know it and understand it. And so the deeper you get into a season, the more of those options you have available to you, provided, you're, say, a team with a lot of veterans that have all run everything, versus if you're a really young team, like, say, the Packers, youngest team in the league, might not want to even try to run all those things because you're really, more focused on just like, can we get you to execute stuff correctly and not drop the ball and do all that stuff? And you're maybe working more on that. So it kind of depends on who you are too. Rob asks, if the Vikes meet the Ravens in the Super Bowl, which team will have the right to wear purple? Home team picks the uniforms, and I believe the home team is the NFC this year. So it would be the Vikings, but it would go every other. Rob E asks, if Darnold wins the division and or makes a decent playoff run, what do you think his trade value might be? I'm assuming Kwesi would definitely not just let Sam walk in free agency for a comp pick. What do you think he's most likely to do? I think you assume wrong. I think he's most likely to let Sam walk and say, so long and thanks for all the fish. You have to remember that like this is a 10,000 mile view for Kwesi. He's a long-term guy. And so part of his job is not getting wrapped up in that moment. So even if the Vikings make a playoff run and make something really cool happen, that'd be very fun. And then, I do think he would just walk and then you would get whatever comp picks you get, or maybe you wouldn't, depending on what you do in free agency. But it would be JJ McCarthy's time, and they've kind of made that decision already. I don't think that Darnold would agree to a contract that's meant to be traded without having a trade partner in place. And here's the logistical issue with all this. You would have to like negotiate that under that understanding, right? You'd have to say, hey, Darnold, we're going to sign you to a $15 million deal, and then we're going to trade that deal, but you don't know who. So Darnold loses all of his ability to choose a team or to pit teams against each other to get more money. He's not going to say yes to that. And if you said, hey, Darnold, you have our permission to seek a trade to go negotiate with other teams yourselves, build a contract with them, we'll sign you to that contract, then trade it over to that team. Why would he do that? Not just like wait till free agency to cut out the Vikings. So logistically, there's not really a world where I think you can pull that off. And I don't really think it happens. Steezo asks, Jason at OTC is advocating for the Jets trading Sauce as part of a rebuild. If Sauce truly is available, how much would you give up? Man, that idea sucks, Jason. If the Jets are going to rebuild, I would say Sauce would be one of the cornerstones that you're trying to rebuild around. I think some of these numbers guys, like Jason, I think falls for this a lot, is a critique I would have of his work, is that his idea of a rebuild really does nuke the thing to the ground and then assume that if you place this much money at this position and allocate this many resources to that position and this much cap dollars and this much draft capital, that you will just like immediately get the players that investment warrants, right? If you put $20 million into cornerback, you're going to get a $20 million quality cornerback. And that's not how it works. When you have somebody in place who is good, spending resources to keep them there is a vital piece of a rebuild, so that you already have something foundational that you can build around. And I think Sauce would probably be the single guy on the Jets, maybe Garrett Wilson next, the two draft picks. I think those two guys would be the most important guys to keep around on the Jets, so probably wouldn't do that. That said, if the Jets were stupid and made him available, I'd move mountains. I mean, that first round pick would absolutely be on the table, and if they asked for more, I'd be willing to listen. He'd be a cornerstone piece till he retires if I were able to get my hands on him, if I were running the Vikings. Bambi42 said, I wanted to know if you think that having a bye week this early in the season is one of the factors about the Vikings' struggles. I don't think so. The Vikings played a tough game against the Lions, right? That was a close game. I think they did get outplayed ultimately, but it wasn't all bad. And then they had, that's a physical team. The Lions hangover thing is now well documented, and the Vikings might be now the best example of it. And they had a short week to go on the road, play a Rams team that was getting healthier. I think they caught the Rams at a particularly bad time. I think if you got another chance at the Rams, I don't know if it goes the same way necessarily. But I don't think it had anything to do with the bye week itself. I think it was just a tough game and then another kind of tough game. And now they got to kind of pull out of a free fall. This is going to be the next thing. It says, don't let that, turn into more tough games, right? The Vikings are heavily favored against the Colts at home on prime time. You can't go lay an egg now. That's the challenge. Skull Scream asks, how much of your current football knowledge did you gain from Madden? I thought for a long time about how I was going to put this. And my answer is, when you read a physics paper, how much of that do you credit to that person's first grade teacher for teaching them the alphabet? That's kind of how Madden feels to me. It's very basic. And I grew up playing Madden, right? So I grew up getting this almost like innate, like language-esque knowledge of, cover 3 is 3 deep zones with 4 underneath zones, and cover 2 is 2 deep zones with 5 underneath zones, and this is what a blitz is, and this is what those things are. The building blocks of true football knowledge come from that. And you can't really get anything more from that, but you get to learn what a defensive end is and what a guard is and all that stuff. And then by playing that, right? And also just watching football my whole childhood growing up, you get that sort of innate knowledge that gives you a language through which you can interpret more complicated concepts. So I don't know what percentage you would give to that first grade teacher. 1? It wouldn't be 0, but it would probably be less than like 3. That is going to do it for me on this episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out for Twitter Tuesday. I'll see you all tomorrow. And as always, Skol.